Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Enough to Keep Going podcast for October 9th, 2022. This is episode number 262. Tonight is Mr. Hamp. Hamp, how's it going?
Good, man. It's been a busy week. It's a Sunday night, and on gamer Twitter, things are already blowing up. But we're going to keep it calm, collected, and fly straight and true, and just talk about games in the news tonight.
Here, we'll start off with our main GX stories. I've been playing, not a new game per se, and then there's.
Let me try and get that cleared up.
Oh, okay.
So, Tal, you may need to disconnect and reconnect.
Yeah, okay. Do that right now.
He should be back here shortly. I'm going to go ahead and, although my my camera is now oh, Tal's back.
I'm back.
All right, man. We're good. Why don't you go ahead and pick up where you started? Why don't you actually pick up where you were starting from? Because I think everything was coming through broken.
Oh, okay. I'm going to start off with No Man's Sky. Once again, they have... I don't know how they did it, but it runs pretty well. I mean, yeah, it doesn't look great, and even then, it's not like it looks terrible. Like it's kind of like there's not as much detail to stuff, but it still looks pretty good. Like it's not like when I was first playing Ark when it first came on the Nintendo Switch. That was pretty rough. Not just graphically, but just kind of play wise too. It was just kind of laggy and just stuttering all the time. But so far, No Man's Sky, it plays smooth. It's really smooth. It plays just like the normal like console and PC games. I haven't played on a PC yet. I have played it mostly on just my Xbox, Xbox X, and Xbox One X, and Xbox Series X. But yeah, I mean the control wise, it's fine. I haven't seen any stuttering. There are some like little graphical things, like you kind of see like things pop in and stuff like that, and the rendering isn't the best, even though you can kind of see pretty far away still. But just more detailed stuff like trees and animals might kind of pop in as you're kind of flying along, or even just running along the planet's surface. But I was like totally surprised. Like I figured, like it might kind of run all right, but man, it runs like really smooth. So I was really surprised. And like I mentioned before, like I said, there's no multiplayer unfortunately right now. They did talk about maybe putting in like kind of down the line. And which, if you've played it, like if you get to like the Atlas portion of it, I think it's the Atlas. It's that space station you can kind of call in when you're playing. I think that's called Atlas, or that might be. I don't think that's Atlas. No, I think that's one of the characters. Okay, sometimes I get confused because of the names. But basically, that space station, at a certain point during the campaign, you can call in kind of whenever you want when you're in space. That is kind of like a multiplayer hub, basically. Like you'll see other people in there. And sometimes you can like trade with them, and they can give you stuff, or you can give people stuff. But here, I mean, when you go in there now, it's just empty, other than like the NPC characters. So I don't know how that's going to work, also, because I know there is like some multiplayer. I guess you want to call them raids, or just kind of like challenges that you can do. I don't see that active right now. I don't know if I'm just not that far along in the story yet to kind of activate that, because there are some things that won't really kind of be enabled for you until you hit certain points. So I don't know if that's the problem right now. But when I went in there, like that part wasn't in active yet, and that's where you kind of get the silver. It's like kind of another currency in the game. And you just get like cosmetic stuff that you can buy and stuff like that, but you only get that currency doing those specific challenges or missions. So it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I guess they could just they'll just be single player missions, I suppose. You could do single player. It just kind of took a little longer, but I don't know. We'll have to see once I get played a little bit longer. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. I think I got like 10 hours in the game so far, and it just came out Friday, so this past Friday. But yeah, that's pretty much the majority of what I've been playing, at least for those last few days, has been No Man's Sky. But yeah, I'm having tons of fun with it, and it kind of just feels like when I first started playing it back on when I first played on the Xbox One. So just trying to get into it, and and it's a little little bit easier, maybe just a little bit more handholdy than it was originally. Like they kind of at least lead you a little bit more. Like the AI kind of helps you out a little bit more in the game. Your little AI companion, or like the person you're talking with, but so it's a little bit easier now. It's still kind of, if you don't charge up your shields and put your health up, you're going to die like pretty much right away. But it's not as hard as it was, where they didn't tell you anything, what to do or anything, like when I first played it on the Xbox. So it's kind of nice. But I'm having a lot of fun. I'm gonna keep playing it, and I think I might go in a little bit different direction instead of, like, I might get into the story a little bit more, at least until I can get like the ground vehicles, and then kind of just do more exploring stuff, because I pretty much did the whole storyline on the Xbox up to, like, I guess what you call the end game. And I don't want to say anything because it's kind of spoily, but and I didn't. There's a thing you can do at the end of the game which I didn't do. I kind of just stayed where I was. So, but I probably won't do too much of the campaign. Like I said, once I get past being able to get like the vehicles and stuff like that, the ground vehicles. And then just kind of do more exploring, maybe even do a little bit more base building and stuff, because I didn't really do that much of that, other than just kind of throw down like a square base or something, just real quick, so I can have somewhere to put stuff and have like all my storage bins and all that. So I'm gonna try to do that a little bit more, maybe hunt more for like some of the more exotic items you can get, or kind of rare items, the vehicles, and what do you call it, the freighters and stuff like that. So I might kind of concentrate on that a little bit more. But yeah, that's pretty much my experience so far on the Switch version of No Man's Sky.
So as we always go with the line of questioning for any Nintendo Switch titles, have you been playing docked or undocked?
Undocked, totally undocked. I haven't even docked it yet, so I don't. It looks, like I said, it looks pretty good on the handheld, and I'm almost thinking it might kind of look kind of bad on a TV, maybe a little bit worse than what I thought it would be on handheld. So, and that's kind of the case with a lot of the games that I've played. Like a lot of times, it's handheld looks a lot better than when you have it docked. But yeah, I haven't played it docked yet.
And when you say you're playing it undocked, you said handheld, so you're playing undocked with the Joy-Cons attached to the side. It's not sitting down on the easel or anything. Okay.
No. Yeah. Yep.
And then I know you said there was some of the space stations seemed kind of empty. So is there multiplayer in this version, as far as you know?
No, not right now. No, yeah, they've said that they might be working on it for a future release or update, but not right now.
Okay, very cool. And is there any type of cross progression with any of your other accounts on any other platforms?
No, that was the other thing too. I was kind of hoping that they might do, because there's a couple of accounts that I have on the Xbox. One was the one that I had gone through the campaign. The other one I had just started not too long ago. So, but no, unfortunately not.
And I guess, because I play on PC via Steam, and then on Xbox, I think I don't know. I can't remember if I bought it on Xbox or if I just play the version that's on Game Pass. So yeah, I guess that would be three different accounts that I would be playing on. So
yeah,
it is what it is. It's awesome that it plays on Nintendo Switch. I wonder if to get to multiplayer they'll have to do some. I would assume that they would have to do some type of cloud enablement with the vendor that Nintendo works with. So that would be interesting, because I'll have to go back and look. I can't remember if. Well, I guess because Control is a cloud-enabled version, that does mean third parties must be utilizing that service as well. And I'm really curious now if Nintendo has it to where it's plug and play for devs, or if there's additional development work that they have to do to deploy a cloud-enabled version. So that would be interesting, because obviously, the less work that the devs and the publisher would have to do, the more likely it is for there to be uptake with that technology on the Switch platform. So.
Yeah. I don't think there's been any multiplayer games, right, that have been in the cloud on the Switch, at least, because it's usually been single player games.
I think so, but I'll have to go back and double check.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting if they could do that, but we'll see.
Yep.
All right, cool. How about you? You got some Halo gameplay that you're getting into here?
I have been hitting up Halo Infinite. I've been spending a significant amount of time. So we're closing down into a month, roughly or so, give or take a week or two before Season 2 ends, and we go into the winter update with the 30 new levels of Battle Pass, which I assume will not just be bolted and tacked on to Season 2, but will be, like it's been before. I mean, so, Halo Infinite obviously touts and markets that, once you buy a battle pass, you can progress against that battle pass forever, even if you spill over past the season. So that's a neat capability. But the truth in that advertising also is that you cannot have more than one battle pass active at a time. So I am assuming that when this winter update drops, you will not be able to have the Season 2 battle pass active at the same time as the winter update, which is what has been driving me, and which is why I articulated during the episode where that news first came out that to me it's a new battle pass. It's a mini battle pass, right? It's a third of a battle pass to kind of tide us over till Season 3. But I'm assuming that functionally I'm going to have to deactivate my Season 2 battle pass in order to progress against it. So I only have like 13 more levels or so to go, so I'm nearly done. Not that much further. In the Entrenched event came back for a little while, so I kind of caught that, but I didn't complete it like I did the Yappening. So the Yappening, I completed all 10 levels and got all the rewards out of that. Didn't complete Entrenched, and the main thing I need out of Entrenched is, they do give you the ability to get additional bits and pieces for your Eagle Strike armor. I think last week I refer to it as the Kerberos armor. I think Kerberos is maybe a single helmet or an attachment or something like that goes on that armor, but it's actually the Eagle Strike armor core. So I've still been hitting that up. No new modes or anything. Interesting dynamics this week. I'm starting to feel like I see some of the element that we see in Call of Duty, in terms of whenever you're in an objective-based mode, and you're paired with randos, you constantly run into people who are not playing the objective. So, I went into a couple matches of land grab last week, and, I had instances during the match where, I would charge, not land grab, but King of the Hill, where I would charge the hill and literally take out, like there would be 3 people standing on the hill. I would literally take out 2 people, and then would finally get killed by the third one once I was one shot. And I'm like, okay, at this point, I'm the only person on the hill. My other 3 teammates must be respawning somewhere else on the level. Certainly, in the time that it takes me to respawn, the 3 of them will get here and take this one dude that I left for them, who's already, got 2 knocks on him. Certainly they'll be able to take him out and take it back of the hill. That did not happen several times. And I was like, this can't be happening. So, there was that. I did win a round of, there is this Slayer free-for-all mode where you spawn with just, I'm not sure if it's a tactical Slayer mode. It may be a tactical Slayer mode, but it's only energy swords and grappling hooks. And so this is the second time I've gotten that mode in the rotation. The first time I took off to a big lead, I was up 11. I was up, 11 points total, and I had like a 3 or 4 point lead. And then I just slowly lost it and like never recovered. And by the end of the match, I didn't have too much more beyond those first 11 points. But this time I got a win, just went on a tear at the beginning of the match. It's a very interesting dynamic. The thing about Halo Infinite with a lot of its modes is, we talk about this in certain other fields. There is a reality to the seconds in a fight, right? And the amount of cycle time, the amount of sometimes cognitive cycle time that it takes to get through like an action or coordinate an event. And those things very realistically have a combat impact. And so it was very interesting in the course of that match. Like I said, I rocketed off to a big tear in the first. It was very similar to that first match. I was up like 11-12. And then about that point, I said, I'm going to start going for overshield. And I started seeing the same thing happen. Right, I was 11 and 12. I started kind of stalling out in how quickly I was accumulating kills, and I was going for overshield, and getting knocked right a few times. So somewhere on that map, and this was on Bazaar, by the way. Somewhere on that map there are sticky grenades. I don't know where the guy was getting those from, but it's primarily only energy swords and grappling hooks, but there are a very, very small number of attachment of equipment pieces, and I don't think there are any other weapons, but there are equipment and apparently no weapons other than the sticky grenades that are somewhere on that map. I have no idea where, because I can't remember. Well, I guess it was overshield was the only other thing that was on the map. So I went for overshield. I started losing that cycle time and started falling behind and started seeing like things impact my rate of accumulation, right, of victory points. And then this time, though, I said, you know what? I'm going to stop going for overshield. I'm just going to go back to fighting the way I did at the start of this match, and just hitting the grapple hook. And a lot of times, the way I was remaining competitive was most people in that mode will grapple straight at you. But I was finding a lot of success by grappling off to the side and then hitting somebody with the sword right by turning just as they pass by me and hitting them, or getting around behind them and quickly pulling a 180 right and hitting them in the back. So it was a great fun mode. I wish I need to take a look at exactly what that mode is and try and see if I can get it. I think it came up out of the quick play rotation. So or maybe Rumble Pit. So it'd be nice to encounter that mode more times. But but that's about it. I'm hoping at least one other event comes through, so I can pick up the remaining pieces of the Eagle Strike armor, and then I just gotta focus on wrapping up the battle pass. And I have been playing that on PC, by the way. I have yet, despite picking up my Series X within the last month or two, I have yet to play Halo Infinite on Xbox.
Nice. When they do those events, is it just do they like bring in special modes for those, or is it just like gear you can get for whatever other modes you play in, like the regular modes?
So the events are LTMs in and of themselves. So they're LTEs that are entirely made up of an LTM. So it's a limited time event, created out of a limited time mode. Well, I shouldn't say that. Sometimes they're a limited time mode, sometimes they're not. The Yappening was a limited time mode, and so it was a weird combination of big team battle and Fiesta. So, and then within that, then there were special modes within that setup, right? And there were some special modes, and then some of them were just regular. It would just be like big time. It would just be big team battle, Fiesta, team deathmatch, right? But then there was like big team battle, Fiesta, like power cell, right? Where that mode where you had to like go get like power cells from the battlefield and bring them back to some type of machine. It was kind of like picking up motes in Destiny, kind of like Gambit in Destiny 2. Except you were fighting each other all the time. It wasn't like PV, like Gambit is PVE, 80% of the match, and then like 20% of the match where it suddenly goes PvP. So none of that, but then Entrenched is nothing but land grab. And land grab is a mode that's available all the time. You just don't have to play it. And so I like that, because kind of like in the way that Call of Duty does things, and maybe Destiny 2 has tried it a couple times. It feels a little more aggravating when Destiny 2 does it, less so when Call of Duty does it. And Call of Duty will sometimes like force you or encourage you to play a mode or play a specific map. Maybe not. They don't really force you to do it, because they don't put Scooby Snacks right on top of that event to like encourage you like to play it. They just put it in the rotation. Now they may take other things out of the rotation that now you don't have available to play. And so if you're trying to just mix it up every single night, because I have my favorite modes in Call of Duty, but I'm not going to play team deathmatch like all night, right? But with Halo Infinite, obviously they put the Scooby Snacks out there, so you're encouraged to go play that mode because, as I've said before, I feel like Halo Infinite's design ethos, its architectural ethos, is really about forcing and driving players to not just play Team Slayer, right? So yeah. So sometimes there's limited time modes in there, but sometimes there's just modes that are available. But they're just trying to force everyone to play those modes and not lay off them as much as they do during the regular season.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like the one thing I like about Call of Duty is how you can just kind of like choose the modes that you want to play, like just take them off and in the little selection screen, or at least in the Black Ops, the last Black Ops I had played, you're able to do that. I kind of don't like that in Halo. Just like here's like a group of things you can play, and here's another group. Which mode I want to play?
Yeah, I see the strength in both. The problem in Halo Infinite, is the problem with Halo for me in the past, as I mentioned, is always like when I would play with casual adult gamers on Friday nights, right? I would always get dry. So I see the strength in Call of Duty in doing that, but I also kind of see the point in Halo Infinite in doing that because there's a lot of good content and a lot of fun modes in Halo Infinite that I otherwise wouldn't play. And I am a very big proponent of, just kind of like how I play racing games and how I play even Call of Duty, right? Where I have loadouts that have the crappy weapons that everybody says you shouldn't bother using, right? But I feel like when I buy a game, I should utilize everything, right? I shouldn't just use the money plays, right? I shouldn't just, drive the cars in Forza that, can win every race. It's like the fun of the game is like playing the other stuff. So I see the spiritual reasons for both. And the downside to the Call of Duty thing is again, you have objective based modes that they don't force everyone to play. But part of that design leaves a crevice where they haven't structured the objective based modes to thoroughly incentivize people to play the objective. And so you go in the objective base. I mean, it's the reason I don't play objective based modes in Call of Duty is because, like I said, you go into them and everybody's all wrapped around the axe about their KD. So you go and play a domination and you're the only person trying to take a domination point. Everybody else is laying, 30 yards off of it in some, sniper nest, right? Trying to kill all of the red forces coming through, trying to capture the domination point because all they're concerned about is their KD. Right, so my KD gets trashed, right, when I go into the match, right, and along the way I also don't have any fun because I feel like I'm the only person trying to capture the domination point. So, I mean, I see the points in like both different sets of behavior, but there's positives and negatives to each side, I think.
Yeah, I think where Call of Duty tries to balance that out, or at least in Cold War, because I don't know about the ones after that, but they kind of try to do that with the challenges, where it's you have to do this challenge, and it has to be in this mode to get however many points for that challenge. But I mean, that's fine. I mean, at least that's keeping it. If you want to, you can do that challenge and play that game mode, but you don't have to. So
I don't disagree with you, but like. I played Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War like hard for the year that it was the prominent version. Those I feel like those challenges in comparison to the other challenges represent like 10%, right, of the challenges that come through. Maybe 20. They force you to play the other mode, but there are none of those challenges that say play the other mode and score X number of points by capturing objectives, right? There are a small handful that say like, get like 10 defensive kills, but like the percentage that they are in comparison to the other challenges is incredibly small. Whereas, and on top of that, even when they say play domination, a lot of those challenges are play domination and get 10 pistol kills, right? So they start out playing the objective, they just play that mode and like, work on their weapon XP while they're in it.
Yeah, the other thing too is you could just delete that challenge and pick a different one if you wanted, which you could do.
Without being limited by challenge swaps like you are in Halo. Like Halo really, And I really wish, like I said, I mean, my biggest thing with 343i is I wish they would just get out in front of this and tell people. Like, I feel like I've figured it out, but they're not telling people, which means when people hear from me, it's just a guess, right? But like, it's clear to me they're trying to cordon you into playing like those different modes because, you know, even though you can challenge swap, they don't just let you do it willy nilly like you can in Call of Duty. Like there's a cost to it. So I don't know.
Do they have a it's kind of Call of Duty term, or at least the first time I heard it was Call of Duty, but a gun game mode type of mode in Halo? I don't think I've ever. They don't. Right?
No, because I mean, because gunfight in Call of Duty is a completely different set of maps. They're all very small. Some of them are ridiculously small, like the KGB library. You know, and they will go anywhere from 2 to 6 players, and then I can't remember. There's 2. So there's gunfight. There's gunfight the mode, which is no respawns, right? When you get killed in that mode, you're out for that round, and then it's just attrition basically until the last person standing, and then the last person standing wins that round for the team. But then they have another mode where there are gunfight maps, but they're 6v6. So you can play team deathmatch also on those incredibly small maps, which is just a whole heap of entropy and chaos. The closest thing to I can't think of anything in Halo Infinite where it's one kill where you don't respawn. They do have an attrition mode where you get like the whole team gets like 10 respawns. And they're shared across the team. So when one person gets killed, you know, and it goes down like that. And then I think in that mode too, it's not like in Call of Duty in that mode when the timer runs out. So on top of that, when the timer runs out, then then they put a flag out, and so it suddenly becomes like capture the flag. So you can actually win the round by getting on like the domination point and holding it for some amount of time. In Halo Infinite, it doesn't do that in attrition mode, but it does collapse the battle space, and so it's almost like a battle royale where you can see cloud starting to compress in on the space to kind of force people to come together and finish out the match. So there are some similarities, but not quite the same thing.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I didn't think there ever was, but I was just trying to think. All right, so let's jump into the news headlines. And Hamp, looks like you got the first story on the EA app, as it's called now.
Yes. So the EA app has been made official and rolled out, so it's no longer in beta. This is not entirely quite a new app. If you've been in Game Pass, this app has been around for a while. You'll remember several months ago. If you tried to pull a game out of the EA collection, they told you to stop using Origin and cut over to this EA app. So again, you know, lots of us have been using it for some time. It's a blue and orange color scheme on the UX rather than the old white and orange color scheme from the Origin app. So this story from Rock Paper Shotgun by Alice Connor. I quote, the new EA app replacing Origin is still a launcher you'll only ever use when forced to. Want to play most EA games? You don't really have a choice. Electronic Arts have formally launched their new store client Doodad after a long open beta, replacing the much maligned Origin with something they refer to as the EA app. Its actual name is only EA. They say it's faster and better. I think maybe it is, but it doesn't really matter as long as it's not a disaster, because it's not like you're using it unless you have to anyway. Just like Origin before it, the new EA app is an inconvenience you must accept to play the EA games which require it, and beyond that, it is useless. It does an okay job of that. So the article goes on. The author is pretty caustic about the EA app. I don't feel the way that she feels quite as much. There's also a couple points of commentary in here about like some other launchers that are like, well, actually, she doesn't say that there are launchers. She says that there are launchers that are worse, that are a little more invasive and kind of interruptive and disruptive to your experience. And I agree with her on that. You know, these launchers come up; they're a necessary evil at this point. I just want to keep them, get them out of my way. However, people are putting effort into them, so I don't necessarily feel like I don't know. Like I said, the article is just pretty caustic against the app, and I'm like, it's the app. Everybody does it. It's a necessary evil. I mean, it is what it is. But I do absolutely agree. Part of the problem with this one is it still does the origin thing where, even though you would tell it to remember your password, after a certain period of time, you would bring it up and it would be like, I know you told me to remember your password, but I don't care. I'm going to make you enter your password again. And for some of us who are more security conscious, that's a real pain in the butt. Like I keep my, the author here mentions that, she keeps her passwords in a password app. I keep mine on an encrypted thumb drive. So I have to go get the thumb drive. I have to enter the password to open my encrypted, secure archive, get my password out, paste it into the thing. Like it's a big pain, right? At least as much as, it's a pain in comparison to, Stadia or a console or, some other thing where I don't have like 2 or 3 different layers to go to get to my game. So that being said, I also often go to a PC where I haven't run Steam in a while, and Steam will have logged you out, right? And sometimes it's not by time. I think sometimes Steam does it because it's seen you launch Steam on on some other devices, right? So I don't know. But at the end of the day, all of these things I think kind of do that. There's just a lot less persistence, and that's for security too. And I get and I understand that. So, it's not worse than Origin. It's a little easier on the eyes because it's a slightly darker color scheme. It's not that bright white kind of in your face. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's like a huge improvement over Origin. It's just a palette swap. So, it is what it is. I don't know. Have you used the EA app, Tao, and has it caused you more or less heartburn than Origin?
Yeah. I mean, I bring it up when I would play Command and Conquer, the remastered Command and Conquer, and it's fine. I mean, it's just a launcher, like you said. Yeah. I mean, yeah. They're pretty snarky in this article, and I was like, okay. I mean, you put it on a little thick here. Like, I don't, maybe just because it's EA or something. I don't know, but it's fine. I have Steam, Epic, Battle.net, and EA for now. So I got like 4 different ones, and it's whatever. I still have shortcuts for the games, and you can just launch the game, and it pops it up in the background, and it's fine, whatever. I mean, it's not a big deal for me, but with just the app itself, I haven't had any issues. Yeah, I mean, it did. Like I pulled it up when I was reading the article. I was like, oh, let me launch it and see if it updated. And it updated, and of course, I did have to sign back in. But I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I know, I can usually remember the passwords for most of these things, so it wasn't a super big deal. But yeah, I think Command and Conquer has been the only EA PC game so far that I've played. So I've only had experience with that game. It's been fine. So not a big deal.
Yeah, I agree. While I was reading it, the app that I was thinking most of as she was going through that was Ubisoft, Ubisoft Connect, and I'm like, I don't know that it's that much worse than Ubisoft Connect, right? I don't know. That sounds like I'm being a little complicit with the way that the world has changed, but the world is the world, and I am but one gamer in it, so it's like I have other things to be wrapped around the axle about. So, new EA app. Go get it. No more Origin. I mean, that's just, I don't know. The Origin branding and the kind of smugness that I felt like it was conveyed with from EA. Like, oh, we're adding so much value. Origin is the way of the future. Like, at least they've backed off of that from a marketing motif, and it's just, a tool, that's thrown in there that you just have to comply with. So I'll take a little less of the up in your face kind of messaging that went along with Origin as a win.
Yeah, I think the other one they mentioned in here was 2K, which I didn't realize they had a launcher at all. So, but I haven't bought any of their PC games yet, so we'll have to see how that one. I guess there's some issues with that. It's trying to see in the article right now.
I haven't run into any issues with it. I think my biggest rankle now with all of these launchers is, if you put a launcher out and then it jumps in front of new games, I'm okay with that. But when I've bought a previous game that didn't invoke that launcher now the older, like it's been woven into that as a front end. That's bothersome, right? I have, the whole Bioshock Remastered, Bioshock 2, Bioshock Infinite on PC, on Steam, and they didn't used to bring up that launcher, and now they do, and that's bothersome.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that they had done that with their older games like that. All right, so let's stay on the PC topic here, and we're going to talk now. I'm not going to go through all 8 pages of this article that I got from Tom's Hardware for the Intel Arc A770. It was more something I wanted to bring up. One, I totally forgot that Intel was making graphic cards. I was like, oh, okay, which they kind of mentioned in the article too. Is like, yeah, hey, Intel's, they're bringing out. It looks like it's kind of like a mid-range card. And I just like I said, I was like, well, I totally forgot that they had even, they had made these, and they're starting to bring them back. But more of, I just kind of wanted to kind of bounce it off of you and just ask you, like, have you had any interaction with these cards, either in, currently or in the past, and just kind of how they performed with, NVIDIA and AMD, those kind of cards and companies.
I'm sorry. So are you asking, have I used the new Intel cards, or are you saying have I used any of the cards that they're compared to?
No, if you ever used any of the Intel cards, either new or old, and just kind of how they stacked up.
The only thing I've ever used from Intel was some of their integrated cards, and any effort to use those has always been like barely passable, completely useless. They have been, way back in the day, when I first started PC gaming, or actually when I came back to PC gaming, it used to be feasible to run games with just software-based acceleration, and so you wouldn't get high performance, but you could play the game. It wouldn't require you to have a GPU. Those days have gone away, and there's always a requirement to be a GPU. Those Intel integrated GPUs have kind of moved into that low end of where software acceleration used to be. Every rare once in a while, I see a game come through that still has it, but that didn't improve. There was all this marketing hype when that changeover happened, and Intel was like, yeah, now you're going to be able to get, much better lower end, bottom end performance for the budget consumer. We're just going to pack these GPUs in. And I'm like, no, that hasn't happened. It's still a horrible equivalent to software-based acceleration. Like, things haven't gotten better. It's not like the whole promise was, oh, you'll be able to go buy like a business computer or a student computer with one of these low-end integrated GPUs, and all those people will be able to game right at the low end of the spectrum, just like all of the people with the high-end mucky-muck NVIDIA cards. And I'm like, no, that has not happened. You go out and you buy a laptop with one of these anemic Intel integrated GPUs, you're not gaming anything, right? Unless it's a game that's so old that it's really difficult for you to run it on the operating system anyway. so either way, you're right, you're going to be pinched out of that in the market.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just because, like I said, I was just like, whoa, I don't. This is an actual graphics card that they're bringing out, so it looks like. It was pretty favorable reviews, at least in this one for tomshardware.com. They gave it a decent score, like 3.5, I believe. Yeah, 3.5 stars. So, they said it was, I think more comparable to the NVIDIA cards than anything than AMD. So, it is what it is, I suppose. So, it's a good, maybe, like I said, it's a mid-range card. So like if you got like maybe a kid that you're trying to build a PC for, maybe, throw one of those in there. I don't remember if they mentioned what the price was. I think I was looking for that. I don't think I ever saw it. Let me see.
Yeah, it's in the table. So the high-end card is $350. The high-end card with half the memory of the higher SKU is $330. The mid card is $290, and then the low. There's one SKU that's kind of like second to last that they don't have pricing for yet. and the Arc A380, which is the low end card, is $140.
Okay, so not it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is depending on how much supply they can get out in the market is, as you mentioned, these are great cards for budget buyers where AMD has historically tried to come in as the budget player against higher end NVIDIA cards. But the huge problem I've had with Radeon cards is the drivers are just horrible. And the packaging of the software that's utilized to exercise, granular control over the card is problematic. And so, I had a 5700 XT, I had two 5700 XTs, and then a 6800 XT, and in earlier, in the beginning of this year, the end of last year, the driver situation had become so horrible that I just kind of in an emergency kicked into a mode where my objective was to rip all of those cards out of any systems that I had them in and get them replaced with NVIDIA cards. And now I run one of those 5700 XTs on a Linux box, and that seems to be a pretty good experience because Linux isn't doing the same things that Windows does with the way it pushes updates, because that seemed to be part of my problem, and I was never able to completely get my systems to back off of that. But right now, where I am right now is Radeons are only good solutions for Linux systems, and I don't know how many people are running out building Linux-based gaming PCs. So essentially, these will be another thing. I mean, the real risk here, I think, that it presents is really to AMD, because people are still going to go NVIDIA for high end. But if these cards come in and kind of are lower priced than AMD cards, then you're like, why would you get a Radeon card when the drivers are problematic and their performance is similar to, the high end Intel card, which is still cheaper than the AMD cards that are trying to compete right with the mid range of NVIDIA. So, that's a possibility. One thing I haven't looked at is I haven't looked at how these cards are doing with ray tracing, which is obviously all the rage now and the thing a lot of people get wrapped around the axle about. Actually says here, ray tracing games flip the table. However, with the 3060 beating the 6650 XT by around 25%, that's a statement of NVIDIA versus AMD. And then it goes on to say, ARC's ray tracing capabilities have been a bit difficult to pin down up to now. The A380 did deliver better ray tracing performance than the 6500 XT, but that's hardly praiseworthy. With 4 times the cores in hardware, we're expecting a lot more from the A770 and A750, and Intel has even shown benchmarks where the A770 clearly beat the RTX 360 with ray tracing enabled. So, I mean, again, that I think still speaks to potentially kind of pulling the rug out underneath AMD. Because it's great that the A770 beats the RTX 360, but of course, NVIDIA is on the edge of its seat, probably here within the year of replacing the RTX 360, right, with RTX 3060 with an RTX 4060, which will again give it a lot more legs out ahead of the Intel cards, and should comfortably position NVIDIA for the next couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. But I absolutely agree with you overall. These are budget cards for the budget buyer. May result in more people building gaming PCs. When this is yet again an opportunity for the price to come down closer to the cost of a $500 console. And as you mentioned, right, great kind of beginner cards too for people building their first PC.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so I guess this is all PC news for headlines this week, because I don't think we'll ever see this next game you're going to talk about on the console. So let's talk about some Star Citizen. I think it's been a while since we've had any news on Star Citizen, at least that we've brought out.
Yeah, my guess is I came across this and I decided to pick it up for tonight's agenda because I'm guessing it was Swiss who put the leaked in-engine game footage story in our news chat and Discord. Well, let me start off with this first story. This story over on Twinfinite by Giuseppe Nelva. Star Citizen has been purchased by 1.7 million players, playtime statistics, and more revealed. The article says, and I quote, "A whole lot of people have actually spent money on Star Citizen, and they play more than ever. Today, Star Citizen developer Cloud Imperium Games is hosting CitizenCon 2952, and the event began with a report from founder and creative director Chris Roberts. We learn that of the over 4.1 million registered accounts, 1.7 million players have purchased the game. This is quite relevant, as the question of how many of the registered accounts actually represented paying customers has been a recurring one." The article goes on to talk about how many people have been logging in and playing the game, basically the equivalent of MAU, monthly active users, which has become the metric du jour around the industry. And what they talk about, very interesting, because this coincides with the years that I was onboarding into the game, or at least the years that, preceded, and then, one of the years I was in. In 2017, there were only about 10,000 average daily unique players. And then in 2021, there were only 32,000. But this year, it's peaked at 130,000, and it basically runs steady state at 50,000, which is, again, daily active unique players. Now, that's significant because on a server in Star Citizen, there are only 50 total players. And so to run the game for 50,000 average unique players, you have to have 1,000 servers, which is not a small amount when you're a small company that's not a multi-trillion-dollar enterprise company that's one of the key cloud competitors on the planet. And that also means you're consuming a heck of a lot of cost and cloud consumption. So it's an interesting metric to look at. Average playtime of players that log in this year is 3 hours. In comparison to 48 minutes in 2017, 64 minutes in 2018, and 2 hours in 2019. And let me tell you, those hours in those past years, a lot of that was not you playing the game. A lot of that was you being stuck in some bug loop, falling through the planet's surface, trying to connect to a server, running around, scurrying around to multiple different servers to try and get back in because you got bounced out. So hopefully things have been better. The sad thing is a lot of this, at face value, you would think would sound encouraging. But the problem is the last time I stuck my head in the door and kind of took a look at this, I was greeted with the same performance. I spawned on the planet that I had selected, and I got in an elevator and immediately fell downward through the building, and then down through the planet's surface and down towards the core, right, falling through the crust of the planet. I did it, and it happened again. I did it, and then finally I realized, one of these elevators, right, is just bad. But if you go into the middle elevator, then it will actually act like an elevator. Now, the thing with Star Citizen is people always say, well, I play it enough that I understand the workarounds. I'm like, okay, but I shouldn't have to figure out the workarounds to I'm just trying to get to my ship. Getting to your ship is and getting in your ship and taking off for the first time is one of the big emotional events, right, of playing Star Citizen. And even for a recurring player, it's an event that evokes emotion, right? Your love of space, your love of science fiction, and it plays this big, crescendoing music and everything, and everything, just like I used to talk about Mirror's Edge, or it's kind of the Mirror's Edge problem. It's kind of the Spider-Man problem. It's a lot of these games where there's a lot of fluidity, and anything that disrupts that fluidity just breaks your your suspension of disbelief and kind of rockets you back to the fact that you're playing a game and it's a janky game. And you can get a lot of that. Some of these planets that you spawn on, you come out of your habitat, you take an elevator down to the bottom floor, you have to find the subway, tram, or whatever, right? Get on it, get over to the spaceport, because on some of these planets, the spaceport is not right there. You have to get on a tram to go there. You cross part of the planet's surface, you come in, then you have to go all the way into the spaceport. Then you have to find the part of the spaceport where you can order your ship, and then you have to go over to the hangars, right? So and this is part of, again, one of the frustrating things when this goes wrong. This is 10 to 15 minutes of activity in the game, right? And when it goes bad, you've just blown 15 minutes, right? So, like I said, it works for some people. Unfortunately, I just found, every time I see one of these reports, I go, oh, okay, this is now the point where I should go back in and capture my return on investment from all that I spent in the game. And it's disappointing that it's still it still hasn't achieved the point of stability that it was at, and I want to say it was 2019 where I played it a lot, and then as we turn the corner into 2020, I kind of had to shake myself free of it, right? Because I was so in love with the ideal that I was just continuing to dump time into the game and wasting it because I wasn't actually playing the game, right? Once it got past that version of stability. But these are all good numbers, good on them. They've gathered like $500 million in Kickstarter funding. What amazed me in this metric is actually their staff is 835 people. Now that's not all developers. I get that, but let's just say like that's as big as the team at Bungie, and probably I would argue probably more developers. So I mean it's impressive. Like you can go to Cloud Imperium Games and have a career, right, for a game that's in alpha. And I don't put a lot of stock into the whole, it's only an alpha, beta, whatever. If the game works and it's stable, regardless of what it's labeled as, because I will always say, for us in software development, it's an alpha because I say it's an alpha, right? Like, we tell people what it is based on what, the type of behavior and the type of reaction that we're trying to drive. It has nothing to do with, any metric qualification of the game. We could slide that bar, on any given Sunday, depending on what suits the business side of things. So I don't put a whole lot of stock in that. But for a game that hasn't delivered its single player campaign, right, and is still has a lot of problems, that's still pretty impressive. So those are the metrics, and then on top of that, 9 minutes of leaked in-game footage from Star Citizen Squadron 42 hit the street. This article over at DSO Gaming by John Papadopoulos. And I quote, a new video surfaced yesterday showcasing 9 minutes of brand new in-game footage from Star Citizen and Squadron 42. This video was from an internal review, and its scenes are rendered on client. So these aren't pre-rendered scenes. So this is a machine actually running the game. This is just a bit of, relatively inconsequential news, but it's I guess significant that, at least 9 minutes of the game running, right, is indicative of the point of maturity and stability of the single player campaign. At least, it's just a data point, and you can extrapolate from that, what you will, I guess.
Yeah, I was looking through that video, and it's kind of just like fly-throughs for the most part through like the environments, and they kind of just show like some of the characters, but it's just like the close up of their face and just kind of like a blank, almost like a character screen, create a character screen, So I mean, nothing's like super major, but it's cool what they showed in there.
Yeah,
and then
it's always impressive, right? I mean, Star Citizen is a great looking game. It's still, despite running it on a 3080 Ti, and this is the other thing that caused me to like not fall for the fantasy is, I went back to it and I played it on my system that runs a 3080 Ti, and I'm like, I'm still not getting like anything like the performance that I get from, modern completed games of this era, right? Certainly wasn't getting anything near like 120 frames per second, and I'm just accustomed to playing games now at 144 frames per second, and Star Citizen is not doing anything near there. I see wavering performance anywhere from 40 to 90 frames per second. So, still work to go, I think.
Was it always supposed to have a campaign mode to it, like when it first started, or okay, it was. All right.
Well, that's the problem, right? When it first started, the scope of the project was that single player campaign, right? Was definitely supposed to be a core, and it was supposed to be completed, and then you were supposed to go out into the world from there. But over time, what's happened is the multiplayer part of it has been the one that has been the primary thing. The single player campaign is still as far as we know, nowhere near completion, even though you would think that would have had a smaller, tighter scope. But scope creep is definitely a thing with Chris Roberts and his crew. So, I mean, to a certain extent, I always believe this thing is just going to be in perpetual alpha. I'd kind of settled into that, and I don't really care about that label. I don't even know if I care if Squadron 42 ever gets delivered. Right? It's I would love to see more stability in the world, and for me to be able to play it like an MMO, like I play all those other games as a service games that I play. For the single player campaign, the sad thing is people who are in that in that piece of entertainment, Mark Hamill's not getting any younger. And I just don't know. I don't know what age he's going to be, right, when these things come out. So, and there are lots of actors that are fairly elderly in that game. So it's, as an actor, that would bother me, right? That I've done, right? That I've shot my scenes and I have this piece of work and it's sitting on the shelf because people can't get out of their own way to get it out.
And this is just like a monthly subscription, right? As far as the service, or
no? I mean, if
you just pay it and that's it.
If you pledge, let's even say that you pledge at the $45 level to get your foot in the door, you're entitled to play the game in perpetuity. There's no, well, I assume that there hasn't ever been any official statement about, hey, once we go, once the game goes into full release, any of you guys who have pledged are going to have to re-up at some fee. But right now it's, you do the pledge. I think $45 I think is the lowest end. And then you're able to play the game, for forever. There is a monthly subscription that gives you access to additional information and additional content on the Star Citizen website or whatever. I think it gives you access to fly additional ships kind of as rentals, I think. And not have to pay the per instance fee. I'm not exactly sure how some of that works. And then I think you get some swag along with it. You may get a pin or discounts in their store for merch and things like that.
Well, I guess that's the thing too. Because you spend real world money, right, for ships and stuff in the game, or you can
for some of them. So there's a number. So all of the ships you can buy in the game with in-game currency. Some of the ships you can buy outside the game with real currency. Part of the problem that has existed for a while, I don't know if they've ever stopped doing this, but when they reset servers and roll out a new update, they will pick and choose of their own volition when they're going to wipe out your credits. So, I experienced updates where, I had earned a certain number of credits completing jobs and I was just wiped right down to zero. And I think the thing that bothers me, at least in that one instance, when you pledge, you then come in with a certain amount of credits, right? You get a ship and then you get a certain amount of credits. Let's I don't know what it is. Let's just say it's 200,000 credits or whatever, right? But when they do these server wipes, they take you down to zero. You don't even get your baseline amount. And that's bothersome. That may have been a bug or that may have been a glitch, because at a certain point, fuel costs money, right? So you get into your ship, it's fully loaded, but unless you actually go do a paying job right off the bat, when you come back and you need to refuel, you may not have any cash to refuel, right? So, those kind of things can be even more bothersome if you've made a certain amount of in-game progress, but then it just gets wiped by the server, because then you have to buy parts all over, you have to upgrade your ships again, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Is there I'm kind of asking this because I played Dual Universe a week or two ago. Is there customization like that as far as ships and can you build in the game, build bases, or how does that work?
The build versus buy meta is more progressive in Dual Universe. I think Dual Universe is a lot more building. That being said, I would say that the things that you can buy in Star Citizen are much more elegant and much more artistically appealing. You need to buy mods to really upgrade them, but to me the quality of ship that you get out of the box in Star Citizen is way higher than Dual Universe, which means it's a little less of a grind, I think. Than Dual Universe is, right? You're not, Star Citizen is more of a grind when you choose it to be, whereas Dual Universe kind of puts that grind right in your face, and forces you to go through that really before you can do anything.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so let's jump into our round robin section, and we'll kind of go through the games, what the other games we've been playing over the past week. Mine are going to be super quick, even though I kind of have a lot of them. But so I jump back into Dragon Ball Fighters, which is the Dragon Ball Z kind of world fighting game on the Switch, Nintendo Switch. I just every once in a while, like I'll have a hankering to jump into some kind of fighting game, and I think I did this maybe a couple months ago, and it was kind of like Mortal Kombat. I just kind of jumped back into playing through more of the towers in that game, but here I was just kind of going through the campaign. So when you first go into this game, you kind of get thrown into this hub world, and you can play this game either offline or online. It actually gives you that option like right away, right when you get into the game. So I was playing. Well, I put online, but really I was just doing the campaign. So I was just kind of going through the campaign. There's kind of like a world where you can kind of like move your guy kind of piece around this little overworld, kind of just like on rails, basically, or online. You see the different lines. You can go to different spots, and you fight somebody, just kind of following the storyline. So that's how I was just doing that. I was going through. I did a handful of matches, and just more or less trying to remember, trying to get my muscle memory back, because it's a little bit different than Mortal Kombat. The fighting here is more that 3D, anime style, kind of more fast paced, it reminds me a lot of actually like the Marvel versus Capcom, Marvel vs. Capcom series, versus series. You can like hit people up in the air and do a bunch of combos on them, or do combos on the ground, stuff like that. So I was just trying to get my gameplay back going again. So I was doing that, and I went through probably like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 that kind of story kind of points. So, and then I started playing other stuff. But I definitely want to go back to this just because it does remind me of those versus games. I really like that style of fighting. Mortal Kombat's nice, but I like that kind of faster paced and kind of more flashy kind of animation with all the different moves that each of the fighters, you get with each of the fighters. So I want to kind of jump back into that and kind of keep playing that. But Hamp, you've been playing some PC game, a little Wolfenstein Old Blood.
Yeah, just one question on Dragon Ball Fighters, because you drew the comparison to Mortal Kombat. Does Dragon Ball Fighters have cutscenes that draw out like a whole story like Mortal Kombat and Tekken do, or?
Yeah, they do. They are. So when you're fighting, well, I guess the cutscenes are still the same. It's more of like an anime. Like an anime. It looks more anime-ish than just like a 3D rendered world. So that's kind of nice that they kind of do that. Although the animation's a little weird. Like it's not like total like a cartoon. Like they're kind of more of like you'll see the character there, and he might be like kind of just like moving back and forth, but kind of just doing the same motion like the whole time. So, or like he might throw in like some other motion, like he turns to talk to somebody or something like that. But it's not like a fluid kind of animation. So. But there is like an overarching story and kind of I think it's an original story, I believe. Like I don't think this is part of any of the animes out there, so just kind of nice.
That's what I was going to ask, because I know Dragon Ball Z people are very religious. Perhaps you could say fanatical about the accuracy of their lore. So I was wondering how dangerously this game treads. So it's probably the safer bet to play it as a new story in the continuity rather than try and retell one that people have seen on TV.
Yeah, which is kind of nice, because I mean, a lot of the games, especially like the Budokai games, and I can't remember what the other one was called, but they're basically just fighting games. But they basically just followed like the anime, from like the original Dragon Ball up to I think before whatever the new one is called. I forgot what the new one is now. I haven't watched that one yet, but and it got kind of tiring, just kind of do the same thing over and over again. Like they'd kind of switch things a little bit here and there, but it was basically just the same story, like every game. So it's kind of nice. This is kind of an original story. So
very cool. So I have been trying to extract some of my money's worth out of PC Game Pass. And so I've been playing Wolfenstein, the Old Blood. Wanted to make sure that I got... so I have 2 gaming PCs that are set up as like my shooter PC. So they're, smaller, 24, 25-inch monitors, 1080p. But they're extremely high refresh rate, so that they're 240 hertz monitors. So I wanted to play a shooter on PC. That was also out of Game Pass, so I scrolled past the Wolfenstein games and saw, oh yeah, maybe I should get back and try those, and went to try out the Old Blood, which is a game that I've started before, I want to say on Xbox. So when I brought the game up, there was no cloud saves or Xbox saves or anything like that. So I started over new, which is fine. The game is stealth heavy at the beginning, and as we all know, I don't like stealth games. So there was a lot of trial and error getting through that section. I want to say, this time, and I remember this for the past two, there's a point, you're, again, one of my big pet peeves, and do not cross me, in this from a design perspective, but, I also then really don't like stealth games where you are just inept if you ever set off the alarm, and like there's just no way that you're going to be able to take on the resistance that comes at you. Wolfenstein is not quite in that mold. BJ Blazkowicz can kick butt and chew bubblegum, if he trips the alarm. One thing I don't like about like the animations and the graphics is that when you get hit, like just the act of getting hit kind of does the same kind of animation with terms of making the screen like a hazy red, like you're bleeding. But it does that like if you get hit and you still have like 92 armor and 176 hit points. So a lot of the times before I kind of recalibrated, where my instincts would drive me, I would get hit and I'd be like, oh crap, I need to go heal. And then I go run around a corner, and then I look down and I'm like, I still have like almost full hit points, full armor. So I had to kind of train in my brain out of that. But this game is neat in that it also allows you to dual wield. So although it's completely ridiculous, but it's kind of like your Schwarzenegger in Commando. So you're running around with 250 cals, under each arm. Which is fine, but the stealth parts, always, get to a point where they frustrate me, and I kind of click over into this guns blazing mode. But I think that the game supports that. One thing that I'm really impressed by this game, it still looks really good to be an older game. I think this is a 2019 release, and technically the game is a remake in terms of continuity. I don't think it's a remake of the actual game, but another developer did Return to Castle Wolfenstein kind of in the early 2000s before Machine Games got a hold of the IP, because Bethesda acquired it for them. So it's kind of going back to the events that lead up to whatever the first the new Colossus, I think, maybe, or whichever Wolfenstein kind of kicks things off for Machine Games. So like I said, the stealthy part of it are a little bit bothersome. But they do give you some good tools to not only work through the stealthy parts, but also to flip over. It definitely has its limiter where like flipping over into that action oriented mode is bad. But that constraint and that threshold is fairly short. So till Tao gets back, Tao, are you still on the mic, just off camera? Okay, so till Tao gets back, I will keep pounding through my list. So the other thing that I've been playing has been Deep Rock Galactic on the Steam Deck. So I brought that game up. It's one of these things on Steam Deck that every Steam Deck game has some little caveat about some little kind of minor nitnoid about why the game doesn't play perfectly on the Steam Deck. And so again, kind of in terms of muscle memory, and paradigms, you have to train your brain out of like seeing that yellow exclamation mark and thinking that it's a big deal. When you go across a game in your library, it's actually typically not. The problem with Deep Rock Galactic is it has a lot of text that's very small. That sometimes, is really strained to see if you don't use the magnifier, which when this game came up, Valve kind of presented a thing on the screen to remind you how to pull the magnifier up, which I ignored. So I just had to take my glasses off and squint really hard at some of the really smaller text. But I did get into the game. The game's got a lot of systems, so this one did have a cloud save. So it really wasn't a matter of me kind of clicking back into stride with wherever I left off. It was really a matter of kind of running a mission just to start reacclimating myself with the controls and the different systems in the game, which I did largely. One thing that I'm not clear on is how to make sure I take a mule on a mission. So I wasn't certain if this mission was deliberately configured so that you couldn't take a mule on it, so you would have to go through a fight without one. Or if that was because there's a way to configure your drop equipment that I didn't do. So I need to go back and do some reading and research on that. But I had a lot of fun playing it, but it was it's very brain intensive with just the sheer number of systems you have to kind of remember. You have limited ammunition, and there's a bit of a No Man's Sky kind of survival loop to it, just in that like you're only going to be able to get through so much of your mining mission before you're henpecked and constantly bothered by the next planetary spiders or whatever beasts come through. It's a very small window. I want to say kind of on the order of magnitude of seconds, but like every, when you finish a fight, like you're only going to have 50 seconds, maybe a minute and 50 seconds right till the next thing is coming along. Maybe it's around 2 or 3 minutes, but the do loop is short enough that I'm very conscious of, like, great Scott, man. Like, I'm trying to dig through a hole in a cavern to get over to the other chamber, right? And in the course of digging that, I'll be attacked like 3 times, right, by random creatures that come by, and so I'm very conscious that the do loop between when I fend off one group of creatures to where they spawn another one and send them at me is fairly short. So that's a little bothersome. But Tal, you have also been playing a mainstay and a staple of your diet. You want to talk to us about your game?
Yeah, so went back to Ark, Survival Evolved, the dinosaur survival game, back on my Xbox Series X, and that one I actually have installed on the system. You can't play it through the cloud, but I've been playing it installed this past week on my system, and I just jumped back in because my son started. He jumped back in and was playing it also, and he does kind of, I don't want to say modded server, but he goes to servers where you can kind of like mess with the like the settings. So with the one we've been playing in, we've played a couple different ones. Basically, it's what it's called is a fiber server. So all you need is to grab fiber within the world, and you can pretty much craft anything you want. For the most part, I think there's some of the higher tiered like tech, like gear and weapons that you might have to have like one other item or ingredient, but for the most part all you need is fiber, and you just get fiber from like collecting plants and stuff. So I mean, and then they also have like the resource gathering jacked up, so you get like a few hundred, sometimes 1,000 of something like right away when you're grabbing stuff. So it's more kind of user friendly, where you can just like kind of build up stuff a little bit quicker than you could in a regular dedicated server. So we've been jumping into those. It's kind of nice because I can I don't have to worry about crafting, having to level up and wait on different levels to craft things. So you kind of just jump right into it, and then you can kind of start taming animals, and most of the animals too are kind of higher levels, so which is nice because then you don't have to take as long you still got to trank them and then feed them to tame them, but it doesn't take as long because you got so much resources now anyways. So we've done a few of those servers, and we're just kind of just screwing around right now, so it's been fun. And then the other game real quick, I jumped in again for Back 4 Blood on the Xbox Series X, and one of my friends actually picked it up, I think on a Steam sale, I believe he said, back a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, and so we finally got a chance to play it. So we're playing it during the week, and just kind of going through. I think he was actually on the last, not the last level. It was whatever the newest DLC that came out, kind of free DLC. So we were doing that,
we started that, I should say, and so we jumped in there with some randoms, and it was kind of brutal. So because they were not pulling their weight, so we kind of got destroyed by the end of the end of the first act. So, but it was fun, and he really liked it. So we'll probably jump back into that in the coming weeks too. So. I think I've finished all of them now, but I haven't finished them like in order. So like, even though it was kind of like a loose story running through the game, I've kind of just like jumbled back and forth. So I kind of like to go through and just play them all, and like from the beginning to the end. So, and try to do it that way. So, but yeah, I'm having ton of fun with that. And then last, back onto the Switch, I jumped back into Mario Tennis. I had stopped playing that because I got stuck on one of the a section in the story mode, and I'm still stuck. I can't get past this one. It's like where you're battling like these mirror ghosts or this mirror creature, and I know what I need to do. I just can't do, for whatever reason, I can't do the very last. It's like different levels of difficulty. It's at one point you just got to hit, like, there's like these two little circles that are kind of like bouncing around this mirror. You got to hit those, and then it just goes up in number. And the very last one is like, I think like 6 or 7 of those circles like running around. I'm not fast enough to do it, so I might be doing something wrong. I actually had to go like onto YouTube and like figure out what I needed to do, like just in the first place, because I was like, I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing. And then I realized like the super that you get, the superpower that you get, you don't have to fill up the 1 meter all the way up. There's like these little stars that kind of appear on the ground where you can kind of do it like really quick. So I figured that part out. But even when I do that on that last level, I'm not fast enough to clear, because you have to clear all those dots like one right after another, basically. And I'm not fast enough to do that. So, and then they just appear again if you wait too long. So it's just kind of frustrating, but I'll jump back in and I'll try it again. So it's usually what I have to do is like just walk away and I'll come back. So hopefully I'll get that going. But other than that, that's pretty much all I've been playing. Like I said, last few days I've just been kind of concentrating on No Man's Sky. So I just had those quick hits this past week. So, and then you had one more game that you've been playing, and you didn't have the system down on here. So I was just wondering if it's PC or what you've been playing this one.
Oh no, I've actually been playing this one on PlayStation 5. So, so what I've been playing is Fall Guys to talk about to round out the show. It's interesting that you mentioned, right, that things disappear and come back, because a lot of that happens in Fall Guys. So Fall Guys is a thing. It is a thing that is maybe different. I talked about Halo, past experiences in Halo, and kind of walking into multiplayer and like constantly being thrown like a different mode. That is Fall Guys to a certain extent. Eventually, I figure that I'll see enough of it. I often talk about Call of Duty, how Call of Duty, the 80% of doing well in a Call of Duty match is, being thoroughly familiar with the map and kind of knowing where you want to go and what tactics you're going to apply to different parts of the map, etc. I think a lot of that is Fall Guys. I think part of my problem with the game is, number one, it's not really PvP. It's really PvE. And the only PvP there is to it is if somebody actually takes time to really mess with you. But also just a lot of people who just happen to be in your way. It's a big crowd of 60 people right when you start off, and trying to get to doors and things like that, which is aggravating, because you're also fighting against the environment so much. So it's ostensibly this casual, cutesy game that's supposed to be chill, but I find it so frustrating, so vastly more frustrating than a Halo Infinite or Call of Duty, where it's you mano a mano, right, with a competitor. But Fall Guys is a lot of environment and chance and random instances, and a lot of it is the kind of stuff that makes me want to throw my controller at a television screen, right? Whereas I'm not, I typically don't get angry at a player in PvP unless I feel like I can see that they're cheating. Even kind of cheesy tactics, I get a little aggravated at that depending on how bad it is. But by and large, I tend not to get angry, but I am constantly angry in Fall Guys, which says a thing and maybe means it's not the healthiest game for me to play. But I did win a match today. The person I've been playing with on PlayStation 5 told me, we played duos all last night, but we were curious about like the solos mode and like how does it play out if you're, people in a party playing solos. And so she got into it and played solos today and was like, hell, I'm having a much better time at it today. And so I jumped on for about 30, 45, 50 minutes and also played solos and also did really well. And like I said, won on there. I think solos is also a lot of kids because, I was playing one of the maps that I was given twice as the first stage was DoorDash. And on multiple instances, I saw just people like banging their heads into doors. And I'm like, did you not read the instructions that tell you like if the door won't open, that it's a false door and to go to a door that is open? Like, but I just saw people like banging into the door as if like jumping at the door was eventually going to knock it down. And I'm like, no, they said there were some fake doors. So I think a lot of solos is a lot of little kids, who, that's the mode that they're playing in, because they don't have, multiplayer break friends online or aren't allowed to get with friends online. I don't know. Maybe it's just a bunch of adults who just don't read instructions. I don't know. But solos was a more encouraging play. That all being said, I haven't hit the point in that game where I'm interested in buying the battle pass. And that says something, right? Because in most games, I'm encouraged to buy the battle pass because I just hate having any kind of barrier in between me. I hate like when I get to the end of a match and I know I'm falling prey to them. Like and they show up the little progress bar and they're like, here's your reward. If you had the battle pass, you would have gotten at least 3 or 4 things in between. But since you don't, we're just going to skip that and go to the next thing on the free tier, which is like 5, 6, 7, 8 items down from what you were going to be allowed access to. But like the game doesn't offer enough PvP like earthiness for me to be wrapped around the axle about what I look like cosmetically. In PvP to me, those things hold more value because you could be on a highlight reel because you could get the last kill or the best set of kills in the game because you can be seen, right? Particularly by opponents, right? Who you strive to be better than. But like in Fall Guys, like I don't know that I care that somebody sees me in a Halo skin, so just because it doesn't have enough of that PvP bend to it. But I've onboarded, I'm in the system now, right? It's another epic game. It's a thing that I can play, on multiple systems and with multiple, different input mechanisms, whether it's just changing controller or going to PC and playing it with mouse and keyboard. One of the other things that also bothers me, and you probably know this because you played a lot of Fall Guys, is how are people able to run faster than you do? I don't know if that's like a perk or a progression that they've unlocked, but it doesn't seem like there's really a dash button. But when we take off from the starting line, I'm even holding the L3 stick, button down, right, to see if there's any kind of like just a skosh of additional speed, and there's not, right? But I see people literally passing me, right, and I'm like, aren't we all supposed to be like the same speed? Like, how does that work? So, I don't know. The game's colorful. I'll give it that.
Maybe I should put that on the box. The game's colorful. No, yeah, I've seen that too. So I don't. As far as I know, there's no dash or like run button or anything like that. I don't know if that's just like the connection like you have, or like they're cheating, which does happen. Like at least on the PC side, there is that. But yeah, I've seen that too, where just people are just flying forward. I mean, the only thing you can really do maybe is like do that jump and that dive. And that might get you a little bit of like extra, oomph. But I mean, when you do that though, when you land, like you're sitting there for like a second. So like So that kind of slows you down. So that doesn't really do anything unless like it's near the end or something, like when you're hitting the goal. But yeah, I've had the same thing, and I can only play like 2 or 3 games. I'm like, all right, I'm good. Like if I don't get any good, progression like in any of the games, especially if I don't get good progression, I'm just like, all right, I'm good for 2-3 games. But I did get the first battle pass when it finally released on consoles, just because that was free. And I think I don't think I got all the way through. I think maybe I was like 3/4 of the way through. But after that, I was just like, I'm fine. I could just, you kind of get the in-game currency too as you're going anyways, just when you're playing. So eventually, I'll just accumulate so much that I could probably just get the battle pass at some point. So, but yeah, I have the same frustrations and comments as you were saying. So, but yeah, it's a thing. But I think the only like PvP game I've ever played is like a soccer game that you can do where it's like, I don't know, however many is left on the team, and they split it in half, and you go against each other. So that's good. It's pretty cool. I like it. There's like, and sometimes like, I don't know, I think there's 2 balls actually all the time. So there's like, you gotta kind of like split up and make sure you have half trying to play offense and half play defense, because obviously you don't want to get scored on. But I think that's the only one that I've actually seen so far. I mean, there's a bunch of games, game modes, but usually like when you hit that season, there's like a few different. I don't know if all the levels are new or just maybe some of them, but usually you just see those new levels a lot of the time. So it's like, and every once in a while they'll throw in an old one, but yeah, it can get kind of old like pretty quick, especially if you're not doing too good. But yeah, that's Fall Guys for you. So, all right, so that's the end of the show. Anything else you want to comment on or talk about, Ham? No? All right, cool. All right, next week, Camp, you'll be hosting once again next Sunday. We should all hopefully be on. DB was actually scheduled, but yeah, he had an emergency he had to take care of, so nothing critical or anything, but he couldn't make it tonight. So hopefully he'll be back, and so shall all of us. So I am TomMaster99. Hamp, thanks once again for joining me for I thought we were going to be short this week, as usual. Though we were good on time though. So stay out there, play those games you love, and play with those people that you love to play games with. And we will see you next time.